All right, today we'll just talk about the cell wall. Cell wall is one important covering around the cells of certain organism. It was discovered in 1665 when Robert Hooke was examining cork tissue under his own crude system of microscope. So he examined a hollow chamber surrounded on the outside by a thick lining or thick wall, and that wall was referred to as the cell wall later on. And due to that reason, the cell has been given a name cell. Uh, it is an extracellular matrix or exoskeletal framework around the cells of a different organism. Universally, it exists in the plants, except a few reproductive, immature, undifferentiated cells which have a thin covering, thin primary lining. All plant cells have a cell wall, and the fungal kingdom, all the fungi, including fungi-like organism, are covered on the outside by cell wall. Algae and bacteria, archaea, all these are the various group of different types of organism which have a cell wall present commonly in all these different type of organism. What is the cell wall? Cell wall is a rigid or semi-rigid, inelastic, non-living part or non-living cover uh, lying outside the cell membrane. It's quite strong and composed of a different types of cellulosic and non-cellulosic polymers, along with the minerals and some proteins in it. It is an extra protoplasmic material secreted by the protoplast or by the living protoplast. So the secretion and deposition of cell wall material is actually affected or actually controlled by the protoplast. Although it is considered as a non-living part, but we have just noticed that in some organism like bacteria and fungi, when the cell wall synthesis process is inhibited by certain antifungal and antibacterial chemicals, so the bacterial and the fungal cell die when they lose that biosynthetic process of the cell wall. So we can say that it's a semi-living. It is completely dynamic and has the power to repair itself. Cell wall is an extremely complicated natural nanoscale architecture in the plant cell, and giving a rigid boundary on the outside of these organisms. Some, the members of the animal kingdoms, the cells from the animal kingdom have no cell wall. They have just an cytoskeletal framework surrounded on the outside by a plasma membrane. They act as a protective covering in the animal cells. So the animal cells are lacking that much rigidity as the plant cell normally possess. It's quite complicated due to the reason that, in fact, the plants have a complicated mechanism for involved for the biogenesis, secretion, and modifications of cell wall. If we notice, the plant cell have a 15% of genes in their genomes involving in the process of biosynthesis and secretion and modifications of the materials of the cell wall. So this whole process is complicated, and the this scaffolding and the framework of the cell wall is quite complicated. Now, the net carbon dioxide fixation which the plants normally carrying out during their lifetime. That's quite, the net carbon dioxide fixation by the plants annually is very staggering. Plant are fixing the carbon dioxide in the form of different type of carbon compounds, uh, and those carbon compounds are mainly become part of a different, different intra and extracellular structure in a plant cell. If we see on the annual basis, actually it affects the 56 into 10 to the power 9 metric tons of the carbon dioxide, and about 70% of that fixed carbon dioxide is utilized in the biosynthesis and in the biosynthesis of the cell wall. So this is a very important activities going on in the plants. If we see the functions of a plant cell, the plant cell wall perform multiple functions in the cell. We'll try to look into that function in. We'll just try to look into the summary of that functions here. It provides mechanical or skeletal support to the individual cell, as the cell is protected or having this rigid covering around the cells of plant, and that's why it provides a mechanical or skeletal support to an individual cells in plant or into the whole plant organism. Cell rigidity of the plant cell is because of the cell covering cell wall, and due to this reason, the plants are supported and they stand upright in a vertical position, vertical posture because of the cell wall. Now, cell wall is one of the important extracellular barrier against various biotic and abiotic stresses, protecting the inner delicate part of the intracellular component from the mechanical damages or from the injuries or different type of infections and dehydration or desiccation. So the cell wall providing protective cover, prevent the infection process. Different type of fungal, bacterial, and viral infection is prevented by this barrier. So it is immunological covering on a cell basis, keep the cell completely protected from dehydration process, and act as an important defensive cover. As we know, it's act as a first level barrier or physical barrier against the different type of infectious agent. Uh, the plant cell wall contains a variety of enzymes, enzymes and protein in it, and these enzymes have a multiple role in absorption, transportation, and secretion of different metabolites. The cell trafficking is actually maintained or controlled by the enzyme located in the cell wall of a plant. So it's a very playing a very important role. Uh, we understand that the plant cell wall contains a variety of enzymes, and those enzymes are involved in the in the cellular trafficking. Particularly, they're responsible to play a very important role in the absorption, transportation, and secretion of a different type of metabolites. The cell shape is actually determined, or the cell size is determined by preventing the cell to rupture. Plant cell wall renders, a sedentary or sessile habit to the plants. Plants remain fixed at one point in their immobile, or they remain sedentary at one place, and this is because of cell wall. Cell wall is a porous medium or porous covering. It is involved in the circulation or the transportation and housing or retaining different type of chemicals in it. We understand that the plant cell wall contain a microscopic channels, or those channels are are involved in the process of transportation and circulation of different chemical substances, particularly the water soluble chemicals, water minerals, nutrient, and hormones and sugars, and all these chemicals can easily be transported through these channels. 60% of the water is kept by the material of cell wall with itself, so we can say that it has the ability to imbibe the exterior water and to retain the water like as the water is absorbed on the sponge surface. So it's very important water retaining ability. The cross linkage of the cellulose microfibrils are leaving a small pores of a 5 nanometer size, which actually impede or slow down the transportation of big globular chemicals. They allow the substances which are less than 20,000 Dalton to be easily passed through these pores. However, many of the chemical substances which are big size, they are stopped or prevented, and the process of penetration is actually. And when we look into older lignified cells, particularly the trachees and those sclerenchymatous and the vessel cells, they have a greater deposition. They have a tremendous deposition of lignin, and this process of addition of lignin from the protoplast towards the inside of the cell wall make the cell wall more, more solid and more rigid and more protective. The maximum deposition of lignin to the primary cell wall, as we know, it's a phenolic polymers, and they're actually seal the pores and preventing the water trafficking through a cell wall, and that's why these cells completely impermeable, or they becoming dead, and they're acting only as a channels for the water transportation. And if we see here, these channels have a thick lignified walls mostly, and due to this maximal lignification, it can just retain or can carry the weight of the water column in it. And secondly, the cell wall become completely dead and impermeable, leaving a small lumen in the center, leaving a narrow cavity in the middle, which allow the transportation of material, particularly the water, along with the minerals, can easily be transported to the aerial parts from the root system. So this is going to be a very important function of the plant cell wall. Cell wall provide Cell wall provide one of the important barrier, physical barrier, and it act as an osmotic resistive layer. As we know, they due to the accumulation or the storage of water in the cell sap, exert tremendous pressure against the cell wall from the inner from the inner side of cell wall. It exerts a tremendous pressure. However, the cell retain that pressure, and the cell due to the cell wall, and the cell wall prevent the cell from some such a osmotic burst or osmotic shock. It is a source, the material we consume on a daily basis contains a large amount of, material coming from the cell wall. So the cell wall could be a source of a human and animal nutrition, particularly the vegetables and the things which we are consuming on a daily basis containing the component of the cell wall. Cell wall can be used in various industries like in the textile, peppers, pulp industries. The cell wall material could be utilized. Cell wall can be used as an important component or as an important material, providing important raw substances for the biosynthesis or for biomaterial synthesis, and the role and the energy their role in the bioenergy production is massive. We understand that mainly the lignocellulosic biomass found in the plant cell wall could be used for the energy production, as we know that they contain mostly sugar molecule, and the sugar molecule can be converted into different types of chemicals, including certain biofuels like ethanol and different type of chemicals. That's why the role of the cell wall is highly important in case of bioenergy production. Basically, the cell wall is involved in the process of development and differentiation of a cell. The cell expansion, the morphology, and the development process in the plant cell is actually affected by the cell wall. As the cell expand, that expansion is carried out in the very controlled manner by the plant cell wall. So it's a very important layer in the involved in the growth and development process of a plant. Now, this is the cover which receive and transport the signal from outside, from inside of the cell to outside through the cell wall. The cell wall is a very significant layer through which the signaling can be passed, like a different signaling like cell wall integrity signal. After the damages in the cell wall due to infection or exterior shocks, the cell signal is passed and that is actually protecting the cell and healing the cell component. And similarly, damage associated molecular patterns signal are passed down into the protoplasm and the biosynthetic machinery is activated. And similarly, the pathogen associated molecular pattern, which are known as PAMs and DAMs, both these signals are actually carried out through this layer, through this cell wall layer. So this is very important uh, covering in the plant and involved in a variety of other functions. Thank you so much for your time.